Hey, everybody. I just want to welcome you to our June installment. Happy summer, obviously. I don't know about everybody else, but my kids are just out for summer break and they cannot wait to be out and about and not in school. So that's always an exciting thing. But I figured we had to kick the summer off with one of my favorite people, Marki Lemons. When it comes to social media, I'm telling you, you all know I attend a million events every year. I hear a million and one speakers on social media. And the first time I sat down and I read the topic, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to stay for this. And then Marky started talking and I was like, wow, she's really good. She knows her stuff. She really was teaching me a whole lot of stuff. And I consider myself fairly savvy on social media. So Marky, thank you for joining us. Go ahead, tell everybody a little bit about kind of yourself and how you got started and anything else you think is important.
Well, one, thank you for having me. So greatly appreciated. My name is Marki Lemons-Rhyal. I'm a real estate keynote speaker and Facebook Live host. And my life is all about real estate and social media and technology. I am not a tech native. I'll be 49 on my next birthday. And so this is something that I actually had to force myself to utilize after I read the 2006 profile of buyers and sellers from the National Association of Realtors. So I teach realtors exclusively. I've been on the education side of real estate since 2006, but I've been in education, especially for adult learners, since 1996 when I earned my MBA degree, but I didn't have any real world experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to come and learn real world experience. And my mentor told me to become a real estate educator. So I've been doing that ever since 2006. I train for real estate associations, banks, title companies, and franchises all over the world.
Awesome. Well, Marky, we are so blessed to have you. So you hit right on, like right out of the gate, you hit something that I think is so important for so many people to hear is all you hear when you go to any event or you're just sitting on your couch these days is about social media and how you have to be so active on social media. And I think, much more so, I was licensed in 2009. And buyers and sellers at that point were kind of like, what are you doing on social? And they sort of asked it because they felt like they had to. Now, almost any appointment you go to, people want to know kind of what you're doing on social media. And you say, it's not something that came natural to you. You didn't grow up necessarily with a computer in your lap and certainly not with one of these in your hand. So why was social media kind of such a natural medium for you to utilize or what about that report really kind of drew you to social media as a medium?
Well, I'm gonna answer that two ways. The first one was what drew me to the report was that in 1995, 2% of buyers utilized the internet in their real estate transaction. But when I was reading the report in 2006, that number was 80%. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is a 78% increase. Nothing else has seen a 78% increase. And I knew then that we were still in the infancy state.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to pick up a little bit at a time, but I was keeping in mind actually my exit strategy from the world of real estate and when do I plan to retire. And I'm actually going to retire when my spousal funded pension plan kicks in from the railroad. So I cannot retire till my husband is 65. That will make me 62. Yeah, I'm thinking about all this, right? And so I said, well, by the time he retires, if I want to retire in style, I'm going to need to know how to communicate effectively with millennials.
Yeah.
And what I do know is that people do not change their preferred communication style in order to do business with you. So I said, well, I need to change how I communicate so that I want to be considered the auntie of the millennials.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wait till I'm older to try to embrace it. So I instantly started to implement small things. It does not come natural to me. Because I have an advanced degree in marketing, I honestly thought that when I graduated from grad school, that would be all I needed to know. But what I also realized was graduating from grad school in 1996 meant that everything that I learned was antiquated, old, and outdated. And at the time, I'm 36, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm too young to be antiquated, old, and outdated. So I had to readjust. I had to change my mindset. And now I am committed to being a lifelong learner, because that's what it's going to take, because it's going to be another change tonight, right? It's going to be another change tomorrow. And so I forced myself based on the numbers, based on who I know I need to communicate with in order to retire in fashion and not struggle. And then I've committed myself to becoming a lifelong learner based on the fact that I know that change is the only constant.
Awesome. So I love what you talk about a little bit at a time, because I feel like, you know, as long as I've been an agent, social media has been relevant, but it's overwhelming when you just kind of try to dive in. And so I love the idea of a little bit at a time, because you're 100% right. The things that you learn today may even be outdated by tomorrow, or definitely by the end of the week. You know, algorithms are changing, things are changing so quickly that it's really difficult to come up with. So let's talk kind of about a little bit about those algorithms without going too deep into it. So people talk about the goal of social media, and I've always thought that the goal of social media is much more about engagement. You've got to stay social with whatever the medium is. And it's not just about posting, but as an agent sitting here listening to this, how would an agent know what will drive engagement, or what sort of posts kind of are helpful for them to really make their clientele and their audience more social with them?
Well, the very first thing, believe it or not, I'm going to use something my great grandmother would tell me. Marki, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth so you can listen twice as much as you talk. Social media is very much about listening, because there is no other place in the world that people tell you all of their business in real time. And so if you are solving people's problems based on what they just told you, then they're going to find that to be engaging. So the first thing I believe as agents we should do is we should listen. And when we couple listening with our business plan, we're able to then find those areas or those niches that we can best serve. And an example would be, I live on the south side of Chicago. Mm-hmm. I talk about south side of Chicago issues. Chicago is the most segregated city racially and economically. So when I am thinking about what kind of content that I am going to post, I'm thinking about the markets that I serve. Therefore, you won't find me talking about luxury real estate. You won't find me talking about jumbo mortgages, because that doesn't solve the problems or the issues of the South Side. Yep. What solves those problems are down payment assistance, forgivable grant programs, how to create sweat equity. So that's what I'm going to talk about. The next thing is, what is engaging to consumers, okay? So is it audio? Is it video? Is it photos? Well, every single platform tells you what is important to that platform from an algorithm standpoint, but then also how are people engaging with that form of medium. So if we came back and looked at our business plan, I want to think about the community. I want to think about the customers in that community. I want to listen to their needs and their wants, and then I want to develop content that is easy for them to consume and put it on the platforms where they're spending their time.
Yep.
And so it's everybody wants to make this one size fits all, and no one wants to do research. Well, we're supposed to have a marketing plan. We're supposed to have a business plan. And if you have those things, you're going to build sustainable real estate businesses, not those businesses that look like a roller coaster ride because we never took the time to dive in and do any research about who our customers are and what their needs and wants are.
Absolutely. No, I love that. So when you're coming up with the content, a lot of the time, I think agents are incorrect in saying you have to write all of your content. Now, you can't go out and steal other people's content and market it as your own. You need to give credit where credit is due. But I'm a big fan of, going to local schools. Like, schools post things on their Facebook pages every single day. You can share that information, and that can be a super engaging thing. So what do you think about content creation? Like, it seems overwhelming for agents saying I have to write everything. Do you think that's the case?
Well, for my content creation, I actually believe that real estate professionals should create 90% of their content in video format. Okay. So I'm not a writer. I didn't come into the world of real estate to write. However, I do know for a fact that video is the most engaging form of content. Now, the question is whether or not that video is going to be horizontal or whether it's going to be vertical, right? Contingent upon the platform.
Right.
So one of the reasons why I love video, besides the fact that it is the most engaging form of content, is because of our ability to repurpose that content without recreating it. So from video, I'm extracting my podcast. My podcast is on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play. We're doing audio to text transcription. So now we have a weekly email, weekly blog post, and then we're taking some of those aha moments and we're creating photo quotes. But it all came from one video.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people are hung up on how they think they look. People do not care about how you look. They care if you can solve their buying and selling problems. And so I am, 90% of my content originates out of a video. And I do some research. I look at the emails that are sent from my local, state, and from the National Association of Realtors. I look at all the emails from the tools that I use. So an example is, I'm going to pick an app. HomeSnap is a big app in the world of real estate. Well, HomeSnap has a blog. They tell you how to use it, how to be more efficient, how to solve the problems of buyers and sellers. Well, if I read their blog post, I can come up with content to introduce the app to my sphere of influence and tell them that one tip or trick they can use in order to reveal better search results, something of that nature. It's a little baffling to me that we're entrepreneurs, but we don't know what we're supposed to do.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's one of those things when you get licensed, they teach you the contract law. They don't teach you how to run the business and all that other really actually truly important stuff. I mean, somebody's going to correct your contract if it's incorrect, and you're going to learn that lesson. But the business stuff, a lot of us fall down on. So with so many changes, if I'm, your average agent, how do I keep up with the changes that are happening in social media? Or really, do I need to? Or would you suggest them kind of finding a platform that fits what they love to do and really running with that platform? Or kind of what do you recommend there?
Well, if I was to look at, if we looked at let's look at licensees and realtors, right? If we were to look at the license law in any state, there's going to be a marketing media component to that license law. If we come over and we look at the Realtors Code of Ethics, Article 12, it is going to talk about truth in advertising and marketing. So should we stay abreast of rules, regulations, and changes? Most definitely, because it's a part of license law in every state and a part of the Realtors Code of Ethics. But how do we do that? I very seldom come to the world of real estate to get my social media and tech information. Only reason is that's not what the Realtor Association is designed to do. We're designed to protect private home ownership's rights and advocate on behalf of realtors. So I use tools like HubSpot. I follow them, Socially Sorted, Maury Smith. There's some icons who develop great content, who are spending millions of dollars on ads every single year to market their content. So I've aligned myself with what I consider to be the best in social media technology education. And I use what is known as a RSS feed, which stands for Real Simple Syndication. I curate their content to basically my personal newspaper, and every single day I am going to learn something new because I know that there is something new. Am I abreast on every platform at every given minute? No, it's not enough time in the day for that, but I am sourcing the most relevant content from people who I think are thought leaders, who are also ethical in the content that they put out, because I don't want to use their content and get me in trouble.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So you've talked a few times about content planning, and I'm a big fan. I'm a planner in all things in my life. But when it comes to planning your content, I use a simple content calendar. Do you use something like a content calendar on your computer or write it out? How do you plan your content?
Both. I'm a very visual person, so I still walk around with a notebook. Okay. So every day I write notes and all that great stuff. Like I even got cards I got to mail out. And so I have a notebook, but I have the content planner. Young lady, she's out of Toronto. I purchased her content planner. So I am doing paper and online. Pretty much all the tools I use are online, but I like to look at it as a layout. So I have my paper planner, and then I have a content planner online. They mirror one another, and I use a lot of tools in that. One would be Wave Video, because they tell you every single day of the year what that day means, the popular hashtags of that day. So as real estate professionals, if we know that we have a niche and it deals with nothing but doctors and nurses, I can go and find out every holiday that might be important to doctors and nurses so that I can develop content that talks to them in their occupation.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So I'm doing paper and I'm doing an online calendar, and I'm using those tools consistently because we need to have a sense of direction on where we're going to go with our content. And a lot of the content can be curated from the National Association of Realtors, your state, and your local association. A lot of anything dealing with home ownership rights issues, changes in real estate taxes, things of that nature, that should come from your local association.
Absolutely. So in terms of planning your content, and I'm going to get to these questions too. So
okay. I'm looking like, did that question just come?
Yeah, I know, they pop up there. In terms of planning your content, how often are agents thinking you need to post this sort of content? Like, I mean, is it 2 times a day, 4 times a day? Am I spreading that across platforms? Am I posting the same thing on different platforms? Like, what's kind of the secret there?
So my philosophy is a lot different than several people's philosophy. You have some people, they're going to develop this great content and post it once. Well, if you look at the algorithm is going to reduce the amount of people who see any given post. I rest assured you, no more than 10% of your sphere of influence sees a post. So I want to be like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, right? If I'm developing great content that people have engaged with it, I want to repost that content, one, on the same platform sometime in the future, but then across the different platforms, keeping that platform's rules and regulations in consideration. Okay. So will I post something from Instagram over to Facebook? Most definitely. Will I post something again in 6 months? Most definitely, because I'm keeping in mind only 10% of that audience has seen it. And I want to be like Coca-Cola and Pepsi. They don't mind that I've seen the same commercial 15 times in any given day of the year. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm going to think about who my customers are. I think that we should post at least one piece of content every single day because stories are so popular right now. And with stories being popular, if you want to remain in the story feed, you have to have content posted in there every 24 hours or you disappear. You don't have anything in that feed. So one piece of great content every single day. If I go back to my video theory, which a lot of people don't like to hear the truth, I believe that every real estate professional should create 1 minute, not 60 minutes, 1 minute of video content every single day. 1 minute.
On any variety of topics.
Let's go back to the content calendar. Okay. They should have an outline of what is today. You know, like the other day was National Smile Day.
Okay, I got you.
Right. So they should have an idea between the associations and all the content they're sending them, what's going on in their local marketplace. And then these other content calendars, they should know every single day they should have more than one piece of content they're able to post. But then they should post at least 1 minute of video content. And here's the reason. 1 minute of video content, right, is the equivalent of 1.8 million words. And they've come up with a mathematical calculation. So it used to say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, 1 minute of video content is worth 1.8 million words. Right. So I want to be relevant in the news feed. I think right now, based on stories population, that you would want to create at least 1 minute of vertical video content every single day. And there is a tool called InShot, InShot, where you can take a horizontal video and make it fit a vertical feed, or a vertical video can fit a horizontal feed. It changes the frame that the video is in, and it gives it space to the left, the right, the top, or the bottom. And so 1 minute of video content, but post that video content to your most engaged audience.
Okay.
And I don't think that everybody should be on every platform. I don't believe that you should build a business on just one platform, but every platform isn't going to serve you well.
Right. Absolutely. And I think I think my feelings about that have sort of shifted. As I look at, I have LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and I have all of these platforms, but my activity on Twitter is minimal at best these days. And part of the reason it is I really only go on there when I'm interacting with somebody and somebody kind of tags me and then we have a back and forth. But I'm not posting a whole lot because what I found was my audience wasn't there. And so I was devoting all of this time and, not social media related, but we only have so many hours in a day. So when you're posting to somewhere where your audience isn't really listening to you, your time would be better spent posting elsewhere. So I think that's such a good point, Marki. You've got to really figure out where people are listening to you and engaging with you and where they are. Going back to your original point of, no one's going to change the way they communicate just to communicate with you.
Most definitely. They could care less. You're not going to be communicated with if you're trying to change how people are communicating. What I found to be interesting, we just launched a podcast back at the beginning of the year, Social Selling Made Simple Podcast.com. And I didn't realize the popularity of audio. So even though I love video content, very few people are going to watch more than a minute or two of video, but 80% of consumers will listen to an entire podcast, 30 minutes to an hour. So moving forward, even though I love all of this video, the question for me now is, how do I extract that audio? So a lot of people, when we came on, I kind of shifted the lighting to see where the best light was in the room. Lighting is not my number one concern. This headset and gathering this audio is, because this will now become it can become a podcast. It can become Alexa flash briefings, right? We can do audio to text and turn it into an ebook. So I want better audio quality than I want visual quality. So we have to not only know where we are, but understand where the trends are going and start picking up a little bit of education about that trend so that we can always be relevant.
Yes, I love that point. I always say people will be patient with bad video, but they won't be patient with bad audio. They're just going to turn it off. I mean, I even joke, my wife, if I echo on her Bluetooth in her car, I say, hold on, I'll call you back. I mean, I have no patience for it. So I totally get what you're saying there. So I love this point about kind of switching and multi-use of the content that you're using. But before we get away from stories, I think stories are a little bit of a stress point for people, and they don't need to be. And it's funny to me that they are, and I think the reason why is that agents and people in general have gotten a little bit lazy when it comes to social media, where they found all these third-party apps that allow you to schedule your posts and do all of those things. And certain apps work better than others. Certain apps, Facebook will play nice with, or Instagram will play nice with. But with stories, they struggled for a long time because you weren't able to schedule stories for a really long time. Now you obviously can schedule stories. So do you schedule stories? And if you do, is there an app that you recommend that people use to schedule stories? I think people are kind of getting pretty obsessed with this idea, like you say, of staying in that 24-hour feed.
So let me say this. I have no problems with bulk creating my stories in advance, but generally I'm posting my stories on the go. And so whatever, like I just took a story, right? A picture of us behind the scenes, right? And then I can follow up with that. So I haven't gotten into scheduling my story post because I'm thinking of those on the go moments that people like. I do some bulk creation. If I know that I'm going to a conference and we're going to have multiple events at that conference, I'm already planning what's going to be important. Do I already have a photo of me and this person in my archives? What can I pull out? Can I do a before and after? So these are some of the things that I'm planning well in advance based on the different conferences that we attend. Stories is meant to be pretty much on the go.
Yep.
And if not, then you're marketing a product or a service, and you should have that content already created. So would I set it up to auto post? Most definitely. A lot of according to the APIs, a lot of the social media management tools to me aren't nearly as effective as they used to be, because there's limitations on what they can and cannot do. At one point, they could post any form of content anywhere at all times. Well, you could use, let's say, Hootsuite, and you could post to your business page, but you can't post directly to your personal feed. Right. So that means now you have to do a workaround, right, to see what other tools will allow me to post directly to my feed, and then use something like if this, then that. Yeah. So do I believe in the tools? Yes, but I definitely believe that if you don't come back, engage, like, comment, people will find you to be like a robot.
Yep.
And they're not going to do business with you. No one wants to do business with a robot.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think, and I'll use this show as an example, Marki, is you guys need to also, when you're bulk creating this content, share that content with other people who might want to share it. So for instance, when I asked Marki to be on the show, I bulk created a bunch of Instagram posts and stories and Facebook posts with her photo promoting the show that I knew I was going to use, but I also emailed them to her in advance so that she could promote it to her own audience. This is a great thing to be able to do for sellers. Sellers are excited that their house is hitting the market. Buyers are excited when they go under contract. You take a lot of these photos anyway, sharing them with your audience so that you can make it easier for them to tell people how wonderful you are, really can increase how much engagement you get, right, Marki?
Oh, most definitely. So when we think about those buyers, or even, well, I wouldn't, not so much the buyers.
Yeah, more
so. Always, yeah, but definitely the sellers. And then they like it when people comment, like, and share on their property. And so sometimes somebody might make a great comment. I'll give you, here's an example. I referred a listing out to a fellow realtor because I knew that she was the person in the marketplace that could handle this property effectively. She actually lives 2 blocks forward, and it's a niche. It's going to be hard to sell. She posted on Saturday she was doing an open house. When I saw that she posted she was doing an open house, because I referred her the deal, hence the fact I'll get a referral check, I tagged people in it, but I tagged the owner in it and the owner's friends. And I said, please share with your friends and family. Mm-hmm. So my friend went over to her own open house yesterday, and she was flabbergasted by how many people were there, but also based on the online comments. So the agent didn't include her in it. I included her in it because I'm the one who did the referral, and she's my friend.
Yeah. And oftentimes I think agents don't include clients in this or don't include the public in this. I don't really actually know why. Maybe some of the agents on the show can answer this for me. But you guys are missing a huge opportunity by not including those folks, because they want to share it. And more so just than sharing it, they want to see that property's out there getting posted.
Here's the thing, right? Because of social media and technology, we have the social proof, right? So what was funny, I told you that Chicago is segregated racially and economically. I've never seen so many non-African Americans make a comment on a South Side house in my life. And the reason is it's a corner house. It's priced at $414, which is expensive in this neighborhood, but it takes up the entire corner. So it goes from an alley to a corner. And they love this house, right? I'm actually going back now just to see how many people commented on the post, because we could see that real-time engagement, especially if a seller tries to act like we haven't been doing any work on their house. We'd be like, oh, no. We did a whole lot of work. That property received 41 comments.
Wow.
So when does an open house post get 41 comments on it?
Yeah.
41 comments, 5 shares, and 104 likes. And the true story is the fact that the open house was packed.
Yep.
And the agent had to come back and do a showing of the house after the open house.
Yep.
So, yeah, you want to include the seller, because the seller cannot say that that was not a success.
Well, and you make such a good point, because I think, as agents for years, we've been making these huge plans about a house hitting the market. So we plan the photographer, we plan, getting measurements taken, and when we're going to put it into MLS, and when it's going to go live, and then when we're going to have the open house. So we planned all of these not social media events, but incorporated into your plan of listing a house, you have to start incorporating social media into it. You have to say, it doesn't make sense for a house to hit the market and then have an open house that weekend if you're not going to be promoting that. You can drive so much more traffic, and it's not just about, likes and comments and things like that. It's about how many people you're going to get through the door there and how much exposure you're going to get. And that's something that you guys should be talking to your sellers about, where if a property has not sold already, your social stats are super important. The fact that you're exposing it to more and more people, you're getting more engagement on it. When you get into pricing discussions, the fact that many people have seen the house, all of this stuff is relevant. So if you're not leaving enough time in your marketing plan for a new listing, you really need to. And if any of you guys are working, with marketing outside, like third-party marketing people, they need to be looped into when your listings are going live, when you're getting new listings, things like that, so that they can insert that in your content as well. So let's talk a little bit about Facebook, because I think Facebook still, for many people, is the most popular, even though Instagram is really nipping at its heels. But let's talk about ads, because I think ads is something that for a lot of people, it sort of is a head scratching moment, as I like to put it. Talking about ads, let's first go into budgets of, how does an agent know if they're spending enough, or what should they spend, or what's something reasonable? I think a lot of agents just don't understand how much is each click worth to me. So what do you think about budgets?
Well, first of all, budgets, I believe that as a real estate professional, based on what your projected earnings are going to be, you should have 10% set aside. Okay. So if you're going to spend earn $200,000, then you need to have about $20,000 set aside for marketing. I am very frugal when it comes to my spending. I can tell you that right now. And I'm cautious. However, I'm going to give credit to the Zillow killer. He states that for every 100,000 people in a Facebook audience, you should plan to spend right about $300. So if you have 100, or you need to narrow it down, right? If you want to get good coverage where you're able to generate 50 to 75 leads per month, that should be what your ad spend should look like. So $300 per 100,000 people that are in that area. But before you do a Facebook ad, you need to look at the absorption rate in your area, because you want to make sure that houses are turning fast enough where there are enough potential buyers in that marketplace. What I think is probably underutilized is that, one, I believe that we should still do direct mail if you want to be a listing agent. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to do direct mail as a listing agent, wherever you're sending that direct mail piece, that farm area, as we used to call it, I don't even know if they still call it a farm, but the farm area, you want to put a Facebook ad directly over the direct mail piece. So people will start feeling like you're stalking them in their home. But as they start to click and engage with the ad, you now have more information on the demographic. So we would start looking at custom audience and then building lookalike audiences based on their engagement.
Absolutely. No, I love that. Because I think that's really where you get a huge opportunity for ads, is kind of this layered approach, if you will, of you're hitting them from other avenues, like just running an ad openly to people. You're not going to generate enough. But I love what you say about the 300 per 100,000 people in that audience, because I think that's a number that I'm sure a lot of you were kind of like, oh, because that's the thing, is so many of us are literally hemorrhaging money because you're too cheap to just spend what it will cost to actually get good coverage. If you run 4 ads and you're spending $20 or $50 per ad, just spend the $300 and get more exposure to the right people, be more front and center, because that $50 ad, that $20 ad, it's really not getting seen. Is that kind of your understanding as well, Marki?
It's not being seen, or it's not being seen right by the right people,
Okay.
which is why we want to go in and check the absorption rate, and we want to see how many people are in that total audience.
Absolutely.
But the goal would be is that you have your own databases of people you've interacted with in the past, and then you load those databases to Facebook to do a lookalike audience based on people who are you already have data sets for. What I would say that's kind of amazing to me, the lack of wanting to spend money in order to make money. And a lot of agents do not have budgets for their real estate business. And so you want to think 10%. And when I think 10%, I'm thinking business cards, direct mail, brochures, your overall brand. What does that brand look like? What do these ads look like? Am I doing looking into Google ads and Google Analytics? And Facebook, when we think about it, if you place an ad on Facebook, that ad can also be displayed on Instagram, and you can do messenger ads as well. So you're covering 3 of the top social platforms. Even though Messenger essentially is built into Facebook, it's standalone. So Facebook owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. And if I do a Facebook ad right now, I can have that ad, and I don't know about WhatsApp because I don't use it as an app, but I know that it'll display on Instagram, Messenger, and Facebook.
Yeah, and I think that's super powerful. It's almost like the whole logic of if you pass a green car and you notice it and you say, hey, I never see a green car, then all you see for the next week is green cars. It's the same thing and the same logic with your ads, just like you said with the Coca-Cola or Pepsi, it's that brand recognition. It's they're seeing you more places. And frankly, it's giving you, in my opinion, much more credibility with the users of these platforms because they're seeing that you're in all of these places. Don't you believe that?
Oh, most definitely. It builds your online credibility. And I was just joking. Somebody came in here and they were on the phone with somebody and they were like, do you know so-and-so? And I was like, yeah. And I said, well, you do know I'm Facebook famous, right? And so people feel like they know you and they just stop and have conversations with you. So I always make sure that I'm smiling as I'm walking down the street. And if anyone looks at me for longer than a second, I'm going to wave at them because my thought process is, did they see me on Facebook?
Yep.
My husband, though, with him, they actually stop him. My husband believes that Facebook is the work of the devil. Yet at least, and he doesn't have a Facebook account, at least once per week, someone stops him and they said, I saw you on Facebook. And he said, well, that's impossible. I don't have a Facebook account. This is his line every time. And they was like, you know what we mean? You're Marki's husband. And I tell him all the time, I post you so no woman can ever think that you're single.
Right. My wife would agree with you. I think my wife's on, but she would agree with you. There's so many times that we're out to dinner where people come up and they'll give me a hug and I'm like, who is this person? They're like, we've seen so much and heard so much about you on Facebook. It's almost creepy at that point. But it's so very true. And I think that's the thing is like, when you can, being Facebook famous is obviously a double-edged sword. But again, when you are representing a seller or frankly, even a buyer, being better connected, it helps buyers as well. But when you're representing a seller, your goal with marketing that home is to get it the most exposure possible. And so if you can get more eyes on your Facebook profiles, your Instagram, all of your social media channels, there's no way that you could physically reach out to that many people in a day the way that you can reach that many people on social media. And I mean, like, bottom line kind of mic drop moment, that's the opportunity that exists with social media that everyone's missing out on. Everybody, Linda Hobkirk, I love your comment. that the average 59-year-old agent doesn't understand the hows of social platforms. The younger generations will rock the real estate world with social. It doesn't only have to be the younger generations, but I agree with you, because what the younger generations have figured out is that so many people are listening and so many people are watching. And so all of these younger generations and the people that grew up with Facebook, I mean, Facebook came out when I was in college. So I kind of got it with like the social stuff happening in college, but we really didn't know how to use it. It was actually the first version of Facebook came out while I was in college, where it was just your university and you could only sign up with your university email. But it was one of those things that you realize all of a sudden, this can connect me with so many more people than I can physically connect with on any given day. And so when you're talking about that, let's just for a moment kind of think about that and the voice that you're using and being mindful of what you're saying, because obviously that's a super exciting opportunity, but it also comes with some responsibility too, wouldn't you say?
Well, yes. And when I post, I always keep in mind, I don't do things at the expense of others. I keep in mind fair housing. I keep in mind my grandmother. She said it was two things that women shouldn't talk about publicly, and that would be religion and politics. And so when I think about who I serve, I don't want to do anything at the expense of the other side, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's familiar status. I want to always keep all parties in mind, right? And so I'm going to adhere to the code of ethics. I'm going to adhere to licensed law. And I am not the gossip girl, signifier, put people down girl. I saw a guy, went to prom with him 1986, and he follows me.
In 1986.
Oh, Lord, I was 16, right? And so he says, Marki, you're always so freaking positive online. And people want to be around the positive person. They don't want to be with the Debbie Downer, the person who, I don't know, the world is coming to an end, or the person who they think talks about them behind their back, because we're dealing with a person's biggest transaction. So the person you see on Facebook, I tell people, you need to be transparent in who you are. Everybody knows I have 5 good secrets. I will tell my business, but I'm not going to tell other people's business, because they've never heard me tell anyone's business on any of these platforms, which is why they trust me. Right. And people look at that, and if they think that you are going to throw them or roll them up under the bus, they're not going to do business with you.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important. Is we have to be mindful now in this social kind of day and age, if you will, that everything you're posting, I remember 5 years, maybe more, but 5 years ago, we were talking about, should I have a business page and a personal page? Like, should I only want to be friends with my clients on my business page, not on my personal page. But like, I've got news for you. Like, your clients can find anything they want. And so, or your prospects. And so I think that's really important, is whatever you're putting out there on social, whether it's pictures of your kids or grandkids, whether it's, business stuff, whether it's just your personal opinions, I think it's super, super important to remember people have eyes and ears everywhere now that social media exists.
But there's no privacy in a social network. And so this whole separation thing blows my mind. And I often let people know, a gentleman told me his daughter-in-law does not allow any photos of his granddaughter on the internet. And that was like laughable. I started laughing. And I told him, I said, well, does she dance? Any dance recitals? Yeah. Do they play any sports, baseball, football, whatever? I said, so let me get this straight. Your daughter-in-law thinks that when the other 50, 60, 200 parents are taking photos of their children, they're cropping out hers. I said, there are pictures of your grandchildren all over the internet. And this thing about friendship, I have less than 5 true friends. That means the other 4,995 friends I have on Facebook aren't my friends. If they question anything or don't like something that I have posted, okay, they're going to take a screenshot of it and share it on my behalf.
100%.
There isn't any privacy. And one, secret agents don't get found. So to have a private account, especially on Instagram, is not advantageous for your business.
Yes.
There is no privacy.
Yes. And I agree with you of you know, I mean, I have two kids that I guess they're not so young anymore, but they used to be young. And my feeling about it has always been I would rather post and know what's out there about them than say, no, please don't post. And other people do it just like you're saying, and me have no idea what's getting posted or shared or commented on or things like that. And I feel very much the same way about myself and my business is it's important to be these places, not just to post, but to know what else is out there. And so I absolutely agree with you. Well, Marki, thank you so much for joining us. You have been an absolute pleasure. I know I could chit chat with you just about all day long.
Not a problem.
Y'all, Marki was kind enough to share with us this daily social media strategy checklist. It is in the downloads section for all of you members. Marki, explain it just kind of briefly so that they understand what to do with it.
So there are different platforms that you should post, and I believe that we should spend 1 hour per day on social media and technology. But I think that we should treat it as lead generation. So in order to earn $100,000 a year, if your average price point is $250,000, you should be adding 2,880 contacts to your customer relationship management from social media and technology. But you have to take certain actions. So I put the checklist together of the actions that you should take in this 1 hour, per day, because the goal is to add a call to action and to get people into your customer relationship management system. But if you need additional information, I do have a private Facebook group called Real Estate Live. It's private, but open to anyone in real estate. So on Facebook, if you just type in the browser, Real Estate Live will come up, and I encourage you to join.
Awesome. Well, Marki, thank you so much. You have added so many great nuggets. I took notes for the first time in ages.
Well, good.
Which
Yay.
I'm so excited about. If anybody wanted to find you, where could they find you? Obviously on all the social platforms.
On all the social platforms, I use the same username, which is my name, Marki Lemons, Marki, Lemons, Lemons. I tell everybody, if you spell it correctly, you will find me online.
Yes, you're an easy one to find online. I look forward to interacting with you much more online. Marki, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We will be back in July with Brad Allen, who is the founder and broker in charge of the Art of Real Estate in Columbia, South Carolina. Brad is such a gem to our industry. He's a fellow Realtor Magazine 30 Under 30 with me. We'll be back July 24th. I believe the time is at 1 p.m. Eastern with Brad. But again, thanks, Marki, and I will see you guys next month.
Bye-bye. Bye.